Now that there is both a brand new Ford F-150 Tremor and the new Silverado ZR2 out on the market, I thought it would be interesting to compare the two, both in spec and tech, but more so in design. And then, of course, let you know which one I would pick based on the styling and the proportions and the looks of these two trucks. So let's start with some of the spec and tech here. For the ZR2, the brand new 2022 Silverado ZR2 is finally revealed, and it comes with a 420 horsepower, 460 pound-feet of torque, 6.2 liter V8, 33-inch Goodyear Wrangler Territory off-road tires, and upgraded dampers as well. It now also has a front electric locking differential in addition to the rear locker. So this is a serious off-roader here, the ZR2. Above those and the skid plates, you have a high-mounted steel front bumper, which adds to the off-road look of the truck, but also helps to achieve the 31.8 degree approach angle for the ZR2. That's more than you get in any other Silverado, including those fitted with a Z71 package or the Trail Boss off-road package with their standard 2-inch lifted suspensions. In fact, the ZR2 actually sits an inch taller than the Trail Boss and is only available as a crew cab with either the short or standard length bed. So you have two different choices here for the bed length. Keep in mind when we talk about the Tremor later in the video. The new ZR2 features a new black hood insert and graphics, a new grille design with integrated daytime running lights, a bunch of ZR2 badges as expected, and 18-inch wheels wrapped in 33-inch tires. On the inside, that's where the major changes happen for the 2022 Silverado compared to the 2021, and that's basically the only reason why I would compare the Silverado to the Tremor or to the F-150 in general is because of the new interior. I would not compare the 2021 Silverado to the 2021 Tremor. So you have a 12.3-inch fully digital cage cluster now alongside a beautiful 13.4-inch touchscreen infotainment system. There's no pricing yet for the 2022 Silverado ZR2, but you can expect it to be close to the current top-of-the-line High Country, which starts at around $55,000. I think it's going to be a little less than that for the starting price of the ZR2, and it's expected to go on sale the spring of 2022. Now, let's talk about the Tremor here. Keep in mind the off-road worthiness of the ZR2. You have a front and rear locking differential. You have two different bed sizes and so on. The Ford F-150 Tremor is powered by Ford's 3.5-liter EcoBoost V6 compared to the V8 in the ZR2, and this V6 puts out 400 horsepower and 500 pound-feet of torque and is paired with a 10-speed automatic. Now, this is the only engine option that you get for the Tremor, and it's also only available with a 5.5-foot bed, so you don't have the option of choosing different kind of bed lengths and what you want to focus on here, bed or interior space. It only comes as one package, and that is the 5.5-foot bed. It only comes with a rear locking diff and not the front like you have in the ZR2. There are 3 trim levels for the Tremor, and if you want to get the new 12-inch touchscreen and the 12-inch gauge cluster, you're gonna have to go with one of the top 2 levels where you get those as standard. The Tremor is lifted an inch in the front and an inch and a half in the rear thanks to a new suspension and of course new shocks. The wheels are 18-inch just as we have in the ZR2 in a matte finish, and just like the ZR2 as well, these are wrapped in 33-inch tires here as well, but Ford decided to go with general grabber all-terrain tires for the Tremor. The front end of the Tremor is beefier, of course, than your normal F-150 since it's supposed to be the more rugged off-road looking F-150, and you also have these beautiful orange details in the grills and the graphics on both on the exterior and the interior. And I think these accent colors that we're starting to see on trucks now, I think it looks really good because usually trucks are either gray or black or whatever, and then having a little bit of splash of color in the front end of these trucks, it just looks good, like the red toe hooks on the ZR2, for example, and here we have orange toe hooks on the F-150. Price starts at around $51,000, and that's for the first level Tremor. As I said, there are 3 different levels, so if you want to have the digital instrument clusters, you're gonna have to step that up a little bit. But now let's jump into Photoshop and let's have a look at the design of these two beautiful trucks. First of all, let me say, I think these are both very beautiful looking trucks. Maybe not beautiful, but they are very cool, beefy, and a lot cleaner cleaner than the previous generation trucks of both of the Silverado and the F-150. So let's start with the Silverado up here. As you can see, we now have a facelift here, which means that these daytime running lights right here, they are a lot thicker than they were in the previous 2021 model of the Silverado. And I think that's one of the details that I really wanted to see in the Silverado when I saw it out in real life, because those are the key elements at night that will distinguish a Silverado from any other car. And I think they were way too small. They were so thin on the previous 2021, and I'm really glad that they beefed them up right here, and it just looks a lot better this way. Another thing that I like about the Silverado is that they have a clear cut line here between the hood and the start of the fascia, basically. So there's no part of the grille like we have on GMCs, for example, where you have the grille kind of sticking up here and continues into the grille. It's a very clean start and finish of the hood, and then start of the lower part of the graphics right here. What I do think could have been done a little better maybe is the grille treatment here. It's very black, it's very huge, just massive in the front end. This part right here, it looks very black and kind of lazy design with this bar. This is the only thing kind of separating the mesh in the inside of the grille here, but it's still a very intimidating grille or front fascia, and I think that's what they wanted to go with here. I also like the red tow hooks here. I know this is a talking point. If you have red tow hooks, that's when you know you have a proper off-road truck. But anyway, it looks cool, and it just adds some splashes of color on the interior, on the exterior here on the front end of the Silverado. And another thing that I kind of like, that I think was a brave move by Chevy to do, is this little insert here of body color or body panels into the lights. I think this is also something that either love or hate, but to me, I think it looks pretty cool, and it's kind of grown on me. I know on the regular Silverados, this was a vent here that was actually functional, so you had airflow going in here and then popping out right here in the wheel well. In addition to that, I do like that this skid plate down here is silver, adds some more interesting color features in the front end of the Silverado, and of course this bow tie is now hollow here, so you have airflow going into the logo itself, which is pretty cool. But the main reason why I like the new 2022 Silverado, there are two things that I think makes a massive difference over the 2021. First of all, we have these new lights here, the facelifted thicker lights right here, which has some dynamic feeling to it because they go from thin to a little thicker right here, just as I think they should have been from the get-go. And of course, you have the new interior, which we're gonna have a look at a little later and compare that to the F-150's interior and just show you what a big of a difference it is 2022 Silverados compared to the 2021. Now let's have a look at the Ford F-150 Tremor right here. This is also a very clean front end. There's not a lot of interruption in the beautiful lines here, and we also have some very nice framing of the graphics by these LEDs right here. So you can see that these LEDs, they go at the very end of the graphics of the front end, and it really nicely frames the front fascia of the F-150. This applies to all F-150s as long as you have the LED package. I know there are some of the 2021 and 2022 F-150s, if you have the very base trim, it doesn't come with these beautiful daytime running lights here, which is just a shame if you don't pick those, because I think it makes the front end a lot more cooler to look at, and also you're gonna be able to recognize the F-150 at night when you have those lights. If you look at the ZR2 here, we have the red tow hooks right here, but in the F-150 you have them be orange, and that goes for this line in the middle as well, which is specific for the Tremor. I really like it because it goes into the headlight here as well. You can see a little bit of orange right here, not very visible on this specific image, but it's there, and it also has a very clear start to finish of the hood right here. We have on the ZR2, we have the same kind of treatment right here. Very clear stop of the hood, which I like. I prefer this design on trucks. I don't like when we have the GMC sticking up like this design, but that's just a matter of taste. It's just me. And then we have a clear start of the front fascia here as well. But what I do like better here with the front end of the Ford compared to the ZR2 is this mesh is very rough right here, and it's only broken up by this line right here. But in the Tremor down here, it's a very clean front end, and we do have some interesting graphics that we can analyze and kind of look at, instead of just having the same kind of mesh being duplicated throughout the entire front end of the F-150 there. We do have these two bars here, and it's kind of a frame within a frame in this grille right here, and I really like it. I think it looks clean, and it has a little bit of a cleaner approach to the design compared to the Silverado. Silverado up here. So let's talk about the rear view here. So the rear view for me, let's start with the Silverado up here, of course, and talk about the graphics here in the rear. I think it looks a lot higher than the F-150. I don't know why. I think it has to do with this chamfer right here sitting so far up, and that adds mass at the top of the tailgate. And then you have this second opening here of the tailgate, of course, which is a typical, I think it's trademark Chevy opening. And then you have the Ram have the split opening. The Fords, I don't know if they have any specific tailgate openings designed like we have on the Chevy or the Ram, but it doesn't look as clean as down here on the F-150, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. Same goes for the taillight here. These have the same kind of mass of these two things here, these two elements that builds up the taillight. They have the same kind of mass, which also stretches the weight up further up on the rear of the Silverado. It doesn't have it's not as dynamic as the Ford in the rear end, and I'm not really a fan of the Silverado rear end just because of that. I think this could be made a little bit more dynamic and not so parallel, so we have the same kind of styling here as we have down here in the bottom. I want to see some different thicknesses and lines so we have some dynamic features in the rear. And this is a very sterile rear end. I think that's the word I'm looking for when it comes to the graphics. It doesn't have any movement in it. I know it's a truck. Usually we don't pay attention to the rear ends of the truck. Just finding these images of these two trucks were a pain. Let's have a look at the Ford F-150 and what the Ford does differently. We do have this part like here, this chamfer, that kind of sets the end for the F-150. We do have it here as well, but we don't have a chamfer that sticks out and then just stops here and goes back up, that have a connection only to the top and not any connection to the bottom like we have on the Silverado, which adds weight to the top part of the rear end. Here we don't have any of that, and we don't have any specific special Ford opening of the tailgate that adds some interesting cut lines like we have on the Silverado as well. And the taillights here, they do have some movement to it because they are thick at the top right here, and then it becomes thinner and thinner and thinner as we go down here, which creates some movement of the graphics in the rear. And of course, I love when they have the tailpipes like this. Usually F-150s have the tailpipes just sticking out right here on the side like this, and I guess for most people they don't really care about that, but I'm really glad that they decided to put the Raptor style tailpipes right here on the Tremor, which means dual pipes going straight back instead of having this side pipe right here. This looks a whole lot better. It might affect the departure angle a little bit, but at the same time you do have this tow hook right here which is gonna hit first if you exit a very, very deep ditch or something like that. But to me, the winner here is definitely the Ford when it comes to the design. And I also want to mention the tailpipes on the Silverado are now completely gone. If you remember the previous generation and the current 2022 as well, they're still there, but I think they look a little cheap when you have tailpipes just be a rectangle like this. So this looks a lot better, and I'm really glad that the Silverado, the ZR2, just decided to ditch the tailpipes altogether, because it cleans up the rear end and it makes it look a lot better in my opinion. Now last but not least, we need to have a look at the side view here as well before we just quickly talk about the interiors of these two trucks. So quickly here about the side view, what I really like about the Silverado is that it feels like it's actually stylized here, and the designers had some crazy lines that they could actually implement in the truck styling of the Silverado, which is kind of ballsy by Chevy to do this as well, because the Chevy Silverado is a very traditional truck. People don't really necessarily want to have too much styling in the truck. They want to be functional and be very boxy. But as you can see, this line right here is a line that I've really liked, and from the moment that this came out, it looks really cool, and it has some waviness to it, and it just looks interesting. It makes it look like it's almost leaning forward and ready to pounce. And I also like the specific for the ZR2 here, the 33-inch tires with the black wheels here. It just suits the overall design of this truck, and it's a beautiful looking side view. However, as I said in the rear view, I do want to have some dynamics to the taillights right here, but that's just a detail that doesn't really bother me that much if we look at it in a side view compared to looking at it from the straight rear. Looking at the Ford, it has the traditional Ford dip here, which improves visibility for sure when you sit in here and look down here. This dip is going to give you more piece of glass, so you're going to have a better view of what's going on right next to the front wheels. But when I drove before F-150, it felt like I was sitting so high up because there was so much glass going down very low next to me, so it kind of felt a little weird driving an F-150 for the first time. I remember that was the first impressions I had when I was driving the F-150 for the first time. But here as well, it's a very good looking side view, clean, not a lot of overstyling going on, and we do have these beautiful taillights here in combination with the front headlights that work together. They're kind of the opposite, so we have the same angle here as we have right here in the front headlights. So it brings and ties everything together graphically on the F-150. Not many lines in the center or shoulder line of the F-150, but we do have this beautiful shelf right here in the hood, which I think looks really good. And you also have a more aggressive grille here with the Tremor trim. Now, before we wrap this up, I just want to show you quickly the interior and how beautiful this interior is. It looks really, really good. Compare it to the previous generation, it looks like it came out in 1996, and I'm not even joking. It was so dated that this was necessary to happen if it's even going to compete in the same league with Ford, Ram, and GMC, for example. They did a really good job updating the interior of the Chevy right here. Ford as well. I really like the Ford interior as well. They both have very stylish, very distinctive interiors. You see the center console here on the Ford is a lot more pronounced and bigger than we have. I think I prefer the integrated styling of the Silverado here compared to the Ford. So, which one would I pick? Which one would I buy if I had to put down the money today? Either the Chevy Silverado ZR2 or the Ford F-150 Tremor. As I said, I like them both, and this is probably the hardest decision in this type of videos that I've made to choose from which one I would buy. But since Chevy did such a good job updating the interior and they added the front daytime running lights exactly like I wanted them to, and they also have a ZR2 package now, I'm gonna have to go with a Chevy Silverado ZR2 for this specific comparison right here. What's really interesting though, and what I don't understand with Chevy, what they're doing with the Silverado is for the F-150 you have the Raptor, and then for Ram you have from Ram you have the TRX, and they also have the Rebel, of course, and the Tremor here, which are a competitor to the ZR2. But Chevy Silverado doesn't have a Silverado that competes with the Raptor or the TRX. I'm not sure if they're planning on doing anything like that. I haven't heard of it myself, but I think it would be very beneficial for Chevy to put out a monster truck, like a super truck like we have in the TRX and the Raptor, and have them compete in the top level of off-road trucks as well.